Welcome back, readers. I know that you're anxiously waiting to hear what's going on with Humphrey. He's so confused or pie-whacked about what is going on with Mrs. Brisbane and this Mr. E. So let's continue. I rarely leave my cage during the day because it's just too risky. However, this was an emergency. So while we were alone, I jiggled the lock on my cage and scurried over to Og's tank. I'm so lucky to have a lock that doesn't lock. Humans always think it's fastened tight, but I know how to wiggle it open. Og, I squeaked, something's wrong. Boing, boing, he said. Then he dived from the land side of his tank to the water side. I had to scramble to stay dry. Hamsters should never get wet. Once he stopped splashing, I went back to the tank and said, Mrs. Brisbane wouldn't miss school unless something was terribly wrong, and Miss Mac said she might be out for a while. Miss Mac always tells the truth, right? Og splashed frantically again and again. I scrambled for a dry spot. Og, if you could splash a little less, I'd appreciate it. Although I know you are a frog and frogs do splash. He must have understood because he stopped splashing. Sherlock Holmes always looks for clues, I said, so keep your ears open, okay? I felt terrible as soon as I said it because Og doesn't have any ears. Well, that I could see anyway. I glanced up at the clock. I didn't have much time before the class returned from lunch. Oh, and by the way, I don't think you're an it, I said as I headed back to my cage. And I know you don't think I'm a rat. Boing, 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 Og twanged. I managed to pull the cage door behind me just as my friends returned to their desks. The afternoon went pretty much like the morning. There was no basketball, but Mr. E pulled out 3 smaller balls from his bag and he juggled them. Can you believe that? Yes, he did. He juggled them. It was quite amazing to see him toss the balls into the air and keep them going. Mrs. Brisbane had certainly never done that. It may be my brain whirling when I try to keep my eyes on the balls. Then Mr. E let my friends try juggling. Harry couldn't keep even one ball in the air, but he didn't seem too upset about it. Next, it was Thomas's turn. You should see my dad juggle. He juggles 15 balls at a time, he said. Whew, Mr. E looked amazed. And he juggles knives, too. He can juggle knives, Thomas added, and baseball bats. Juggling large, sharp objects sounded downright dangerous. I heard Rolling Rosie say, please, give me a break. Just Joey rolled his eyes. Thomas managed to juggle the balls for a few seconds, but then he dropped them and they rolled across the classroom. Perhaps your dad can give you some pointers, Mr. E said. Phoebe caught the balls on her first try, but then dropped them. When Daniel tried, he managed to keep 2 of the balls going for a few seconds. It looked like fun, but I couldn't help thinking about Mrs. Brisbane. She'd be teaching us something interesting about clouds, or the ancient Egyptians, or reading something wonderful like Sherlock Holmes, or teaching about the water cycle. And here we were going through an entire afternoon without learning anything except how to juggle. Next, the end of the day, when Mr. E finally stopped juggling, Helpful Holly raised her hand. It's time to take care of Humphrey and Og, she said. They need to be fed and Humphrey needs fresh water. Tomorrow he gets his cage cleaned. I don't know how to do those things, Mr. E said. Holly explained that the students took turns at this job. This week it was Phoebe's turn to look after me and Harry's turn to look after Og. When Harry threw some froggy food sticks into the tank, Og made a huge splashy leap to get them. I could tell my friends were impressed. Mr. E was impressed too. Ooh, he's quite a jumper. Ah, that's nothing, Thomas said. Once I saw Og leap up out of the tank and land all the way on Mrs. Brisbane's desk. What? Some of my friends laughed. That didn't happen, Simon said. You're exaggerating, Holly said. Thomas just shook his head. I know what I saw, he told them. I'd seen Og pop out of the tank a few times, but I'd never seen him leap to Mrs. Brisbane's desk. Phoebe gave me fresh water, which tasted much better than the old water in my bottle. Oh no, Phoebe suddenly said. Mrs. Brisbane always brings fresh veggies for Humphrey. Yes, she does, and I looked forward to them. I always have nutty nibbles and mighty mealworms, but there's nothing as crunchy and munchy as fresh veggies. In fact, I hide them in my cheek pouch and in my bedding, but the cage cleaner always finds them and takes them away. You don't have any, Mystery asked. Phoebe looked worried as she shook her head. No, I do, a voice called out. Thomas rummaged through his backpack. I didn't eat my carrot sticks, he said. Humphrey can have them. I don't like them. I was extremely grateful to Thomas, though why anyone wouldn't like carrot sticks is a mystery to me. My friends take very good care of me. All right, so we'll stop there, and you probably noticed Harrison is hanging out with me over here. See you later.